The snow was still falling, soft but relentless. As I watched Karen stomp across the walkway, clipboard in hand, glaring like she owned the neighborhood. "You're supposed to wait until 8 a.m., she screamed, pointing at the sidewalk like it had betrayed her. I stood back, shovel in hand, icy mist curling from my breath. "I know the rules," I said calmly, "but I also know my family's safety comes first." She stomped closer, heels crunching in the fresh snow, and I noticed a small crowd gathering, their phones raised. She tried to pull out a fine notice, waving it like a sword. "This will cost you. HOA rules are strict." I smiled faintly, keeping my distance. "Funny," I said, "because last month, you forgot to clear this corner, and my kid slipped. Didn't see any fines then, did you?" Her face flushed red. I was busy," she stammered. I shrugged. Maybe it's time the rules apply to everyone equally. The wind picked up, and I stepped aside, just as she slipped on the thin layer of ice I had strategically left on the HOA's own walkways. Phones buzzed with laughter and videos recording every second. She scrambled, arms flailing, trying to catch herself on a light post that refused to hold her weight. This isn't fair," she yelled. I held my shovel steady and said, "Fair is knowing the rules go both ways." By the time the HOA board arrived, called by one of the neighbors who couldn't stop laughing, Karen was still trying to regain her dignity. I handed the official a folder of photos and timestamps, showing all her previous oversights. Their eyes widened. You've documented everything," one of them whispered. Karen's mouth opened, closed, opened again, but no words came. The board shook their heads, muttering. "We can't enforce a fine now," the lead board member said, exasperated. "It's all on record." I let the snow fall on my shoulders, feeling the cold but also a rush of satisfaction. My neighbor's kid ran up, snowball in hand, and I caught him laughing. "See? Justice can be simple," I said. And in that moment, as the crowd watched Karen storm off, humiliated but still pretending authority, I realized, sometimes, rules don't need to be broken, they just need to be applied equally. I whispered to myself, watching the ice glint in the sunlight. Never underestimate a little patience. And a little strategy. Viral line people would remember. Fair is knowing the rules go both ways. The next morning, the neighborhood buzzed with whispers. Karen, still fuming from her icy defeat, had called every HOA board member she could reach, insisting they act immediately. I was shoveling my driveway again, careful to stay just within the rules, when her minivan skidded onto my street. She jumped out, arms waving, face red as ever. "You think this is over?" "I'm reporting you for reckless clearing," she shouted. I wiped snow off my gloves, calmly replying, "I follow the safety rules. Unlike someone else who leaves walkways unsafe." Her jaw dropped as a neighbor leaned over the fence, holding up their phone. "Karen, the video says otherwise," they said. A silent ripple of phones appeared, recording every word, every gesture. Karen's outrage only made it more entertaining for the onlookers. She stomped closer, trying to regain control, but I held up my hands. "Look, I don't want trouble, just accountability. You said rules are rules, so they apply to everyone?" Suddenly, a loud engine roared and a county sheriff's SUV pulled up. I raised an eyebrow, then smiled. "Funny you called the HOA cops, isn't it?" The officer stepped out, flipping open his badge, and Karen froze. You're the real sheriff?" she stuttered. I nodded, leaning casually against my shovel. "That's right. And I suggest we review the safety violations together." Karen's face went pale as the officer and I walked the icy walkways, showing documented oversights, missed snow clearing, and violations from her own property. Cameras from neighbors captured everything. "This is impossible," she muttered, voice shaking. By the time the SUV left, Karen's credibility was gone. Her calls to the HOA went unanswered, and her complaints were logged as frivolous. I looked at my family watching from the window, snowflakes landing softly on the sill, and felt a deep relief. My son grinned, holding his sled. "Dad, did we win?" I chuckled, ruffling his hair. "We did, kid. Justice sometimes comes wrapped in ice." Viral line people would remember. Justice sometimes comes wrapped in ice. By mid-afternoon, the neighborhood had transformed into a slippery winter wonderland. But this time everyone knew who really kept the streets safe. Karen, humiliated and flustered, tried to rally a few neighbors to her side. But the security footage and official HOA records made her attempts laughable. Every neighbor who had secretly been annoyed by her behavior now whispered and shook their heads at her entitlement. I stepped outside again, this time just to enjoy the calm. The county sheriff had left his card with a subtle note. Call if anyone else tries to play HOA games. I smiled, knowing that even if Karen tried another stunt, the legal ground beneath her feet was shaky. My family joined me, bundled up, helping me clear the last patches of ice, laughter echoing against the snowy rooftops. And then came the final twist. My phone buzzed with a live feed notification. It was the local news station. Apparently, someone had uploaded the HOA confrontation video. Within minutes, it went viral across the county. The headline read, entitled, HOA Leader Publicly Exposed, Sheriff Shows. Who's really in charge? Comments flooded in. People were outraged at Karen, praising the calm, clever homeowner who refused to back down. I leaned back, watching the sunset reflect off the snow, and felt something deeper than satisfaction. This wasn't just about ice or fines, it was about respect, fairness, and knowing that even a single family standing up could turn the tide. Viral line people would remember. Sometimes, the coldest winter shows who's really warm at heart. The neighborhood slowly returned to its usual quiet, but the energy had shifted. Karen's fake authority had crumbled, and she couldn't hide her embarrassment behind another HOA memo. Meanwhile, neighbors who had once avoided confrontation now waved or stopped by, sharing stories of their own HOA frustrations. Some even thanked me for standing up, not just for my property, but for the principle that no one, not even a self-proclaimed HOA queen, could bully a community into submission. I checked the snowblower one last time, making sure every walkway was safe and clear. My kid ran around, leaving tiny footprints in the fresh snow, while my spouse smiled, saying, "You handled it all without losing your cool, and without a scratch on the law." I nodded, realizing this had been a test of patience, planning, and wisdom. Karen's car remained at the tow yard, her threats now empty words, and the HOA board scrambled to cover their mistakes. The sun finally broke through the clouds, melting icy spots on the sidewalks, and neighbors began to help each other clear the last patches of snow. My family huddled together, sipping hot cocoa by the fire, laughing at how tense things had been just hours ago. I looked out the window at our home, the driveway clear, the yard safe, and the neighborhood calm. I realized something deeper. We had protected more than just our property. We'd defended respect, fairness, and the right to live without intimidation. And as Karen stormed off, mumbling into her phone, I whispered to my child, "Never let anyone make you feel small, even when they try to act like they own the world." For the first time that winter, peace settled over our home, and it felt like victory, quiet but complete. Some people think power comes from papers and rules. Real power comes from standing your ground.